Hi, I'm Fearless Agent, and welcome to the first episode in a series I'm dubbing FTB Tech Guides. In this first episode, I'll be going over some early game power generation, so let's get started. I'll be covering both Industrialcraft 2 and Buildcraft power. So first we'll start off with Buildcraft, and we'll start by looking at the different types of conduits you can use. Now, if you're not familiar with the mechanics of the power transfer in Buildcraft, I will be making another video shortly to explain it, but for now I'll just quickly run through what the different pipes do, and it's pretty straightforward, but I'll just cover it really quickly. So the wooden conductive pipe basically extracts power, but it can also limit power, as all the pipes can limit power, and their power rating is written on the sign below them. So the wooden conductive pipe can carry up to 32 Minecraft joules per tick. Now, in previous versions of Buildcraft, pipes would explode if that power rating was exceeded through the pipe. Now it just purely limits it. Also, before, wooden conductive pipes couldn't connect to other pipes. Now they can, but they still can't connect to each other, as you can see here. The rest of the pipes are pretty much straightforward. They can only conduct power, they can't extract power from engines or other sources. So cobblestone conductive pipes are 8, this is stone, 16, quartz is 64, golden is 256, and finally diamond is 1024 Minecraft joules per tick. The only power storage option for Buildcraft power is part of thermal expansion, and it's the redstone energy cell, but if you're not familiar with these, that's okay, because I will be probably going over them in a future video. So let's move on to some power generation, some early game power generation. So the first one I have for you today is the Hobbyist Steam Engine, which produces 1.6 Minecraft joules per tick. This is from Railcraft. So if you don't have Railcraft installed, you won't have this, but I am recording this using FTB Unleashed version 1.1.4 for Minecraft version 1.5.2. So if you're using that, you'll have this installed. The way this works is you can put any fuel that would normally go into a furnace, and it will burn it for specific amounts of heat. You also need to supply this with water, and to do that, a good way to do that is to simply use an aqueous accumulator. This is from thermal expansion, and by just placing 2 water buckets next to the aqueous accumulator, it'll start generating water and passing it in. It needs water to produce steam. It stores 4 buckets of water as well as 4 buckets of steam. So if I get some coal, and I believe I need a lever, it'll start burning. And the way this works is it'll slowly build up heat until I believe it hits 100 degrees Celsius, and it will start producing steam. Once it does that, it'll start producing energy once it hits 2 buckets of steam. So we can see that happening. It starts producing steam. It'll produce steam faster as the heat rises. Once it hits 2 buckets of steam, we'll see it should start produce power. Of course, I should probably have some output for it, so I'm just going to put an empty energy cell. There we go. So you can see its max output is 1.6 Minecraft joules per tick. Now the second value here is 2.0 Minecraft joules per tick, and this only applies to if you produce steam in some other way and feed it steam directly. You don't need water or fuel for this, because the steam will require that from whatever source you're getting it from in the first place. So really the only way to do this is through a Railcraft boiler, which we'll get into in another video, but it's good to keep that in mind because you can use these in early game and then use them later as your first engines using the steam in your first boiler, so keep that in mind. Let's switch this off. Next we have the clockwork engine. This is from forestry. It produces from 0.5 to 1.5 Minecraft joules per tick, and it requires no fuel. The way to actually activate it is you hold right click, and you can see it changing color from blue, green, to yellow, to orange, and finally it'll turn red. And it'll just produce power that way. If I hook this up, you can see it'll start pumping in. So the higher as the colors change, so from red down to blue, red is the most efficient state, so at red it'll produce 1.5 Minecraft joules per tick, and as it goes down in color, as you're seeing here, it will reduce its output. Now if I just destroy this, place it again so it's not producing anything, and I'm going to go into survival mode real quick. The thing to note about this is if you wind it too long, you'll actually start taking damage. So this happens only after the red, so you'll see this in a second. There you go, and you can actually die from this. And it's a pretty funny death message. I won't show you, and you'll have to find that out on your own if you wish. But there's the clockwork engine. Okay, so here's the redstone engine. Pretty straightforward. I don't think... Yeah, it can't output to a redstone energy cell, but hooking it up to a wooden conductive pipe actually won't work either. Did not mean to do that. The sole purpose of the redstone engine is to power machines solely. So although I do have Minecraft joule per tick values here, corresponding to the values, the colors that it shows on its engine, it's only really used for things such as pumps. So if I get a pump, and I'll just replace that, I'll demonstrate this very quickly here. So the most ideal situation that most people use early game is to use 4 redstone engines. I'll just use a block, and then to activate them use levers as such. Now usually people do something like this. Now, not usually with water because you can use an aqueous accumulator, but imagine this being oil or lava perhaps. And then you could put something just like a normal Buildcraft tank. And it'll start outputting. And this is pretty fast. I mean, it's not the fastest you can go, but it will do rather well, and especially with oil, because oil takes quite a bit of time to process, this will more than keep up. So that's a good, basically one of the prime uses of a redstone engine. They can power machines, but they won't output energy through conduits or anything else. Next we have the Stirling engine here, which again burns anything that can go in a furnace, and it produces one Minecraft joule per tick, and it's 20 times as good as a redstone engine at its best. It is from Buildcraft, vanilla Buildcraft, if you will. So really this is your best option as far as the earliest engine you can get. It's very easy to make. So this is kind of what I'd recommend for things such as, I don't know, maybe your first rolling machine before you have an actual power grid. Or something else like perhaps an induction furnace that, you know, induction furnaces take quite a bit of energy, or magma crucibles to make your first redstone energy conduits, part of thermal expansion. So keep this in mind as well. Just one of these on a pump will do much better than redstone engines will, and redstone engines will as well. Moving on, this is part of Darkcraft, and as we all know, Darkcraft is rather overpowered, but I have this here anyways because it can be used both in early game, moving into end game stuff, and I'll show you why. So this has 2 tanks, and you can see it has the output of Minecraft joules per tick and the throttle. Now what this means is these are all the fuels you can actually use. So you use lava, oil, ethanol, fuel, force capsules, this is the liquid force, and force gems. Now the fuel goes on the left. The throttle can go on the right, and the throttles that can be used are water, milk, or ice. Now, not many people know, but you can actually get crushed ice. And the way to do that, if I'm not mistaken, is to simply put ice into a magma crucible. I could be mistaken, so I'm going to attempt to look this up. Okay, you could put snowballs in a squeezer, and ice shards apparently. There's a bunch of ways, and perhaps look that up. I wasn't exactly prepared to look that up, but there's a bunch of ways you can find that. I'm sure on the wiki we'll have some information. But the important part is you could see on the tooltips where the star is. So you can see on this, because it's the only tooltip it has, is it says 4.0 Minecraft joules for 20,000 ticks in a force engine, but the star, the asterisk next to it, means that's its multiplier. So these aren't actually fuel values, they're multiplier values. So simply put, say you put force gems into a force engine and put milk as the throttle. Well, it's going to multiply force gem output, which is the same as liquid force. It's 4.0 Minecraft joules per tick. Well, it's going to multiply that by 2.5. And the duration in ticks that the throttle has is how long the throttle lasts. So simply put, many people use force. They put force gems in a squeezer to get more out of their. You end up getting more liquid force out of force gems, so it lasts longer. It also is one of the best, if not the best, form of energy in a force engine. So you can see lava is 0.5, oil is 1.5, ethanol is 2, fuel is 3, and force is 4. So force is going to be the best if you have a large supply of it. And then you can use water. You don't have to use any sort of cooling or anything like that, but it will increase your energy output. And these engines will never explode, so you don't have to worry about that. But water will double the output. So you can see fuel gives 3 Minecraft joules per tick in a force engine, but 6 in a combustion engine. If you add water, then it's 6. Because water will double the output. So it's the same as a combustion engine for fuel. But if you put milk in it, then it's going to be more than a combustion engine. And milk you would think would be hard to acquire, but you can use something such as the MFR rancher to automatically milk cows. So there's many ways to automate this. So just keep that in mind. There's a bunch of ways, both early game and end game, to use the Artcraft engine, which ends up being, yes, rather overpowered, but if you wish to use it, it is a very good source of energy. The last two engines are from thermal expansion, and they produce a variable amount of energy based on actually how much is requested in the network. So they can produce anywhere from 0.2 to this specific one, the steam engine, can produce anything from 0.2 to 2 Minecraft joules per tick. Can accept any of these, so mostly anything that goes in a furnace, except, blaze rods and lava buckets, it can't. Part of this is because, well, blaze rod grinders are kind of easy to get mid-game, end-game. So, in this engine is mostly used, supposed to be used for early game. And a lava bucket, we all know, the next engine is magnetic, which is purely for lava. So it'll burn anything, and it can has an internal storage of liquid if you wish to pump in some sort of. Actually, I think this we'll test it because I'm not entirely sure. So here you go. You can see it's using the fuel to produce 4 Minecraft joules per tick. The tank and internal tank is actually used for water that you must pump in for it to work. So there you go. And it outputs 4 Minecraft joules per tick, so you can see that happening. And there you go. And with all thermal expansion, engines in any real machine, they have this redstone control, but I'll mention it here because we're going over the engines. So you can disable the redstone control altogether, or control it based on if you want it to run all the time with no redstone signal, or require a redstone signal to run. And so this is basically like a built-in on-off switch. You can just right-click it and switch it to here if you have no lever attached, and there it goes, it shuts off. Alternatively, you can put a lever here and just always keep it on low, and then flip that and it'll turn off. But if you want to save space and you don't mind manually switching it, that's an option. If you have some redstone nearby and you don't want it to affect the engine, you could just have it ignore it. So there you go. Another thing to note with both of these engines, if they have nowhere to put energy, so let's say I get a full redstone energy cell, what's going to happen is they will start building up internal energy, and you'll see it start to throttle its power usage. So its max power is 4, and you can see it's going down in power usage. And eventually it's just going to stop producing power at all. Its power production is equal to, it's correlated to how much internal energy it's storing, so it can store up to 4,000 Minecraft joules. And if we wait long enough to see it hit 0, what will happen is it'll just stop, and in order to get it to start working again, you need to right-click it with a wrench, Buildcraft wrench, or prototype Omni wrench, or any type of universal wrench would work. Of course, the Buildcraft wrench will work as well. And maybe we'll come back to that to see what we have to do. So we'll move on to the magmatic engine, since it's the last in the Buildcraft section, and this is pretty straightforward. It only has an internal tank, and its max output is 4 Minecraft joules per tick, so of course this is your resident source of lava produced energy. So if I just connect this up using liquiducts for ease of use, and I'll get a lava bucket to very easily put this in. You can also simply right click with a lava bucket on the engine to put lava in, and it'll fill up. So you don't need pipes if you want to do this manually, but you could just right click with a lava bucket. And then you of course need a source power, or a destination for the power, and it'll start producing. There you go. So it can't actually hold any inventory, so you can't put in a bunch of lava cells like you can in, say, a generator that we're going to get to, but this works just fine. You can see it's now only producing 0.4 Minecraft joules per tick, and we'll come back to this and I'll show you how it kind of breaks down, and it doesn't explode, but you will have to hit it with a wrench to make it work again. Okay, we'll move on to Industrialcraft now. Alright, so as with Buildcraft, it also has a sort of an energy net, which I'll go over in another video. However, I will just introduce some of the power storage and transfer, so you're at least a little familiar with it. So each machine in Industrialcraft has both an input and an output limit, and this bat box stores energy and has a limit of 32 EU per tick. EU is the unit of measure for energy. Simply energy unit is what it stands for. And it stores 40,000 EU per tick. So this is the first sort of energy storage unit. There's 3 altogether. Now, you can transfer power portably with backpacks, and you can see I'm wearing this. These are my armor slots, and the bat box has an interface which shows your armor, which is really nice. So what's really cool is this. While you can wear this, and this will recharge your tools that use EU automatically, you can also transfer power from bat box. So you can see it's transferring out of the bat pack into the bat box, and you can see the internal energy filling. Now, batteries are something else that stores energy, and you could put anything in the top slot that stores energy to recharge it. You can see that filling up. So you can see I could drain all the power back in, and there you go. So that's that. And you'll note that it will charge. If you saw it, the number wasn't going up or down. So things put in the bottom slot will charge the top thing first. Anything in the top slot has priority. So it's not going to fill this internal buffer until anything in the top slot is filled. So that's useful to note. Okay, so let's just go over the wiring really quickly. These are the main cables you want to be aware of. There are others, but I'll just make you aware of these. So we have ultra low current cable, which is part of a set of energy current called microvoltage, which isn't really known all that well. People know of low voltage, but microvoltage is just kind of this thing where low voltage machines that produce less than 32 EU per tick, probably closer to like between 1 and 5 EU per tick. So this actually can handle up to 5 EU per tick. And while we're on that subject, I'll just make a note that it's not actually EU per tick, it's EU per packet. But for our uses, EU per tick and EU per packet are kind of interchangeable. If you're interested in the difference, it's actually a pretty important difference, but I'll go over it in a different video, so I'll just use them interchangeably now. I'll probably say EU per packet, at least I'm going to try to. So this can handle up to 5 EU per packet, and it has energy loss. Over a distance of 40 blocks, it'll lose 1 EU. Low voltage cable can handle 32 EU per packet, and it can travel 5 blocks before losing 1 EU, so a little worse, but it can handle more energy. And you have high voltage cable, which can handle 512 EU per packet, and again, it goes back to the other cable, which can go 40 blocks before losing 1 EU. So that's pretty good. Now, that is a big jump because there's other cables in between, but I'll be honest, they're not really worth it. But it's pretty easy to just search. If you search cables in NEI, you can see all the different cables, part of IC2. Some of them are more useful, and I might go over them in a different video, but for now this is all we'll have to worry about. And then we have these, which we'll go over in a second, after we go over the generators. So behind all these I have some sort of energy storage, just to kind of show you, demonstrate, like I did with the energy cells. So right here we have the most basic of the basic, a generator. It's basically a furnace that produces EU. So if I get, in fact, anything, if I just search generator in NAI, you'll actually see, if you have search tooltips shown, it's one of these. There's an option in NEI so that you can search tooltips as well. I believe it's enabled by default. So you can see like all of these have the power rating for a generator. So any of these things you could put in a generator, just like as if you could put it in a furnace. So we're just going to get some coal and show you. It just so happens that a bat box stores 40,000 EU. One piece of coal produces 4,000 EU, and the generator also stores 4,000 EU. So basically, a bat box will store 10 pieces of coal worth. The generator will store 1 piece of coal worth, and then the generator will also hold a stack of coal. So there's quite a bit of energy you can store just between these two machines. And then, of course, you can line them up and have multiple connected very easily. I'm using copper cable here just to demonstrate. Next, we have the geothermal generator, which, if I get some lava cells, so the important thing to note is it has an internal liquid reservoir. You can see that right there. If I put this in, it's going to immediately consume 24 of the cells, so 24 buckets internal storage of liquid, and it will produce energy. As you see, it's producing energy. It also has an internal energy, right here is technically the energy bar here, but I'm not entirely sure what the internal storage is. It's not that high. It's mainly to store, its main use is to store the liquid so that it can produce the energy. And it only does accept lava. Okay, so this is the first micro voltage energy producing machine. So you can see I'm using the ultra low current cable because that can handle what this produces, which is only 1 Minecraft joule per tick. But you can make quite a bit of these, and they work all the time regardless. They don't require any fuel, so they're pretty good solar panels, obviously. And they only work during the day. They don't produce anything at night. And it has an indicator here, so the sun means it's working. If I go to midnight, it will change, so that means it's not working. That will also be the case if it's raining. Moving on, we have the water mill, which I have hooked up to an MFSU just so a bat box didn't fill as I was preparing for this video. It's just so there's a couple ways you can actually produce water using or produce energy using a water mill. Excuse me. One, the easiest way and passive way is to just surround it with as many sides with water. So you can have a max of 29 sides unless you want to actually output the power, which is probably the case. Then you have a max of 28 sides because it counts corners. And it produces more energy the more sides are water. And you can see it's producing EU very slowly. So that's passive. Now, it's also microvoltage, as you see. I'm using the ultra-low current cable. There's a better way to do this. You could use water cans or water cells, though you're better off using water cells because water cans only stack to 16 once you fill them. So we're going to use water cells. You can also use water buckets, so I'll show you that. So this here is actually a bucket graphic that will fill up when its internal reservoir of water fills up. So you can input water and it won't consume the bucket and it'll produce energy faster. You can see it's producing it much faster as long as it has water, and it just will do that. Okay, and now if you put in water cells, on the other hand, it won't give you the cells back, but it'll stack water cells, so they're much easier. It's much easier to automate. So if you can automate this, this means you'll have one less side to passively produce power at the same time, but it's going to produce energy much faster at 2 EU per tick. So if you have an array of these, it's going to be pretty effective. So there's that option. And the last but not least is the windmill. Now, I'll explain what this box is in a second, but you can see this is what the windmill looks like. And it has this little graphic. And basically, it does have a limit of, I believe it's, I actually made one over here. I think I have information over here. I forgot to transfer the sign. Yeah, I have a sign over here. So, it's max efficiency. To get max efficiency on a windmill, you need to be above Y level 181, and if you go above Y level 237, then there's a chance that a windmill will just break, and by that, I mean it'll turn into a generator and drop between 0 and 3 iron ingots. So you want to stay between that range. It produces very little energy. However, it's based on a bunch of things. Its height, and if there's any obstructions. So that's what this box is. This is basically half of its obstruction area. If it doubles on the other side, then you'd have the full effect. But if any block is in this area, it will significantly impact its power generation. And you can see as it is right now, it's gathering energy at a decent rate. But again, if you have an array of these, then it'll produce quite a bit of early game energy. So if you have an array of them, of course, the windmills themselves are going to be their own obstruction. And in fact, it's not possible to have no obstructions because 2 of these cables are actually reducing the energy. But this is the minimal obstruction you can have. Only 2. So there's the windmill. One thing I forgot to mention is the actual specifications of this box here. Specifically, any block within a 4-block horizontal radius and 4 blocks above or 2 blocks below will be in the way. So there's exactly 4 blocks space, and then the wall, which the wall does not obstruct, and the ceiling and the floor do not obstruct. So 4 blocks across in any direction horizontally, and 2 blocks down and 4 blocks above is the obstruction area, or volume, if you will. So if I put a block here, that's obstructing, here is obstructing, that block is obstructing, etc. You get the point. And like I said, I would get back to these cables, which are special cables. If I'd simply get some coal, or let's get some wood since it's faster burning, and throw it in this generator, this bat box will start to fill. So this cable is called an EU splitter cable, and it basically acts like a glass fiber cable. It can handle 512 EU per packet. It's high voltage. However, it loses EU once every 2 blocks. But if you apply a redstone signal, it will prevent connection. So you can see this is filling up its internal buffer instead of filling up the bat box. So this is good for cutting off power sinks, such as later mass fabs or other machines that just sink power, that you don't want to use power. Or perhaps a generator that you don't want fuel to be used. And you could just turn the lever back and it will continue generating again. So there's that. Now this is the EU detector cable, which is also pretty straightforward. Same specs there, and I bet you can guess what this does. It, yes, outputs a redstone signal when EU is passing through it. So if I take out the wood, you'll see after it stops burning that last piece, the redstone goes off. And that's because it's not transmitting any more power. You can see that one more time. There you go. Generator goes off, and then the detector cable. And that just about wraps up this video about power generation. Now, I just want to bring up one more thing, which is redstone engines can get red like this, and they'll never explode. And they're actually most efficient at this state, so this is actually a very good thing, and they're very fast. So if I place that, you can see it's going pretty fast, and actually just completely removed all of the water faster than it could replenish. So that's just a quick little thing I wanted to show you, and that pretty much wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and until the next video, I'll see you later.